Welcome to today's episode of Molecules to Medicine podcast. For those of you just joining the podcast, we are AI Jules, and we specialize in helping healthcare and life science businesses scale their business and revenue and explore how AI is reshaping the industry and accelerating innovation. So if you want to learn more on how to take your business to the next level, make sure you stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us a word growth in the DMs and we'll get back to you. So I'm your host, Hardeep, and we have a very exciting guest for you today, Greta Rosler, the CEO from Radius Leaders. Welcome, Greta.
Thank you, Hardeep. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And where are you talking to us from today?
So I'm in the eastern United States in Pennsylvania, and it is quite cold here today.
Okay, good. Any snow?
Not any to really speak of, much
Okay.
to the chagrin of my younger children.
We had a lot of snow last week, but it's melted now. It's gone away.
Did you?
So the country's back to work. So Greta, tell us a bit about your background and the journey that led you to Radius Leaders, and any pivotal moments or experience that shaped your career.
Okay, well, thank you, Hardeep. So I'm a nurse leader by background, and I'm a nurse in my heart and soul and profession. Many years ago, I, as a new nurse leader, recognized that there was very little training, even though I was achieving advanced degrees and certificates. I recognized that there was still an opportunity to help nurse leaders be successful. And I held a patient experience leadership role where I saw that firsthand across the health system I worked at. And it led me to really want to identify what are the ways we can practically upskill nurse leaders to do the hard work they have to do. As you probably know, in healthcare, nurse leaders are required to get various degrees, certificates, all these things that are really valuable to advance our profession and our credibility in the healthcare leadership space. However, those things often don't prepare us for the practical stuff we have to do. So I founded Radius Leaders, my company, to provide that level of skill development to nurse leaders who are juggling so many difficult things at the front line of care.
Okay, great. So are you work directly with the nurses, or do you have to, or is it a training package that you provide?
So I like to consider us not a one-size-fits-all model. And some people will say, oh, are you a consultant? So in some ways, yes. Sometimes we're called upon to consult with organizations around why maybe their nurse leaders are struggling, how they can improve it. But most often, I consider us a nurse leader development partnership company where we're walking hand in hand with an organization to provide skills and support to sustain those skills for the nurse leaders in those closest to care roles, such as managers, charge nurses, assistant managers, but up through directors and executives as well. Sometimes we have programs where individuals can come through us. So right now we're running a program called the Skilled Nurse Leader Success Circle, and any individual could sign up for that without their organization. But in many cases, we're partnering with senior nurse leaders and organizations to build programs that rely on the AONL competencies, but also that really meet their leaders where they are with what they specifically need.
Okay. So are these all mainly healthcare institutes like hospitals?
Yes, hospitals generally, although we've had some professional organizations that want this support for their members. So, for instance, state organizations of nurse leaders or state organizations of nurses or other healthcare professionals that are looking to support their members. So, and we've done some work with universities and other academic organizations to provide this support.
And what problem does Radius Leaders solve?
Well, the problem that we're really working to solve is trifold, I'll say at least, right? So the first problem is that you don't have to be an expert in nursing leadership to know that healthcare is in crisis, particularly in the States, with lots of dynamic, multifaceted issues. But one really core issue that remains is that we have a workforce problem. We have high nurse turnover. And to compound that, we have high nurse leader turnover. And through the pandemic, that really magnified this issue. But what we recognize and what is very clear in the evidence is that nurse leaders stay put when they have the right support, skills, and ability to develop. And that is very clear in current academic literature that that's what nurse leaders say they need to
Mhm.
feel proficient in their role and fulfilled by it. So
Mhm.
we're helping solve that problem. And in turn, when you have a nurse leader who's fulfilled and really competent and confident, what you see is that their staff retention improves, their likelihood for attrition is lower, and their own job enjoyment actually improves. So that's really what we're working towards.
Okay, great. I mean, can you share any real examples of where your customers have benefited?
Yeah. Boy, there's so many of them. And it's one of those things for anyone listening that works in healthcare, you know that measuring data is so hard because there's so many variables that impact your outcomes. And what we see from our workshops is that nurse leaders, for instance, one of our primary workshops we run to support nurse leader skill development is teaching them how to effectively and efficiently do nurse leader rounds. That
Mhm.
is core to everything a nurse leader does, and most nurse leaders have never been taught how to do it in a way that actually feels good. We teach them that, and when they come in, they're usually pretty tuned out, like, I don't want to talk about this. This is not my favorite thing. It's a pain in the neck. When they leave, we see that usually anywhere from 98 to 100% of participants will say that they are more likely to go complete rounds, that they are more confident that they can use rounds as a strategic tool in their leadership tool belt, and that they feel better about it. We also see in organizations that have that training, their rounding completion going up, but also we've seen historically their patient experience scores going up as a result as well. So that to me is really my first goal is to impact the nurse leaders themselves. But then from there, we want to see the outcomes happen in their department and with their patients. And we see that too.
Okay, great. And how can you measure that?
How do we measure the first piece around their likelihood to complete rounds, we measure via post workshop surveys. And we ask them, compared to when you came in, how likely are you to complete rounds? And that's where we see that dramatic improvement.
Okay.
We then measure their patient experience scores. We look at maybe what is their priority. Maybe they're working on communication with nurses in their department. And so we teach them how to round with an emphasis on that. And then we measure that over time and see, is that improving? And we see that.
Okay, fantastic. And what's the biggest challenges or bottlenecks that you're facing at the moment?
That Radius is facing or that nurse leaders are facing?
Radius.
Let's see. Well, the biggest challenge that Radius is facing is a good challenge. It's growth. We're
Mhm.
growing a lot, which as a entrepreneur in this space, growth is dynamic in a lot of ways. So that's a challenge, right? Is growing and scaling our business and our ability to reach more nurse leaders. There's a lot of interest in this work and a lot of need for it. So we're trying to figure out what are the ways we can make this learning and this support most accessible to all nurse leaders. Hence the program I mentioned to you before, the Skilled Nurse Leader Success Circle. That's one of our new attempts to do that in 2026. It just launched.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem for Radius right now, and it's a good problem, but it's a problem.
Sure, sure, sure. And in terms of the nurse leaders, then what are the challenges are they facing, and what are the shortfalls that really that you can plug?
So, interestingly, the challenges that nurse leaders feel today, from what they tell us and what we see in literature, is that they're struggling with their own well being, as well as the well being of their teams, workplace violence, and all of the policy and infrastructure issues that are impacting nursing at large. And that's what the literature shows us. And if you talk to a nurse leader, that's what they're going to tell you. They're struggling with retaining staff, getting them in their seats. They're struggling with all of the issues around pay and infrastructure, but also how to make their staff know that we care about their well being and that we really want to support them as a whole person. And that to me is why if we help nurse leaders, we can help them better be prepared to have the resilience to do that.
Oh, sure. And what makes Radius leaders different from others trying to solve the same problem?
Great question. Well, I believe and I see in practice that one thing that makes Radius different is that we really emphasize actual skill development in an adult learning centered way. So, all nurse leaders go to courses and get degrees, but what is often not a part of those programs are simulated learning experiences where you sit, you practice a skill, you get feedback on it, you set goals around it, you practice it again. And that's one of the really differentiating factors for us is although It's easier to reach people through modules and virtual courses and all these things. What we lose there is that ability to create relationships and create real practice with real skills that gives nurse leaders confidence to do it better in their real practice environment. So that's what sets us apart.
Okay, and where do you see the biggest opportunities for innovation that can impact the nursing industry today,
The nursing industry?
and yourself, and Radius leaders?
Well, innovation for us is going to look like getting critical around how we can impact more nurse leaders virtually using AI tools, things like that. I know there are some great innovative tools on the market that serve as like AI coaches for nurse leaders. And things like that. And so our challenge is going to be to rise to that challenge and figure out how can we align with those approaches, because having a real life person helping a real life nurse leader all the time is not always feasible. And that is a goal that I personally have, is to figure out how can we integrate in the future as that looks. For nurses
Sure.
themselves, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. What was the question?
So biggest opportunities for innovation.
The biggest opportunities for innovation. So I'm doing a lot of reading about this in my dissertation that I'm writing currently, just about all of the demands that nurse leaders are juggling. And one of the things that I've really come to realize is that when it comes to innovation, nurse leaders are specifically challenged to get to that table. It's not even about implementing and adopting it. What I've been learning is it's also about getting to the table and being able to ask the right questions and being able to be a core member of the teams that are planning all of these innovative solutions for nurses and nurse leaders. So it's really about empowerment.
Okay. And how do partnerships between academia, industry, and healthcare providers shape that innovation today?
How do partnerships with academia and healthcare shape that innovation? Well, I can think of a
Partner? Do you partner with academia and industry?
So I have partnered with a couple of organizations, technology companies, or other companies that are professional organizations for nurses, leaders, and patient experience professionals. And I think the one way that those organizations can really help us is by helping foster research in these areas and helping disseminate it.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of hearsay and a lot of buzz around innovation, but what do we actually know to be true? Like what I just mentioned to you about even getting nurse leaders to the table. We can teach them about AI all day long, but if we don't have research to show how we can empower them, it doesn't matter if they know about AI necessarily. So
Mhm.
that's where I think academia or professional organizations can help.
Okay. And what's next for Radius leaders? How do you see yourselves evolving over the next few years?
How I see us evolving. Well, right now we have a faculty team of committed nurse leaders that do this work with me. I see us evolving from the standpoint of needing to solidify some of their roles. They are contractors by design because most of them have other roles in healthcare currently. So, what's next for Radius is to continue to solidify that core team of experts with really relevant experience to teach all of those who we reach out to and try to support.
Okay, and what stage is Radius leaders at right now, and what does growth look like for you over the next 12 months?
Can you say more about what you mean by what stage?
What stage is the business at? Are you actively trying to grow the business? Are you looking to generate more revenue or get
Yes.
some more clients?
We're really trying to, as I mentioned earlier, what we're trying to figure out how to do is how to scale there's so much interest in this work and a need for it. So the goal is to figure out how do we really get our hands around that need for growth and continue to spread this content expertise support in a way that is sustainable for all of our faculty and myself. That's really what's next, and that's what's really going to drive our 2026 is how do we do that for the clients we have, the clients that are coming, and also for the virtual world out there that can't reach us through any other way than virtually or asynchronously. How can we support them?
And what growth channels are currently working best for you?
Well, I firmly believe that the best way to grow is to maintain and build relationships. So I spend a lot of time building relationships with leaders to understand their challenges and figure out if I can be of service to them. And I do that through going to industry events. I do that through a presence on LinkedIn. I do that through just ongoing conversation, both in person and virtually. or really just trying to offer support. And it's not all paid support. Sometimes it's let me be a thinking partner to you. Your nurse leaders aren't rounding. Let me be a thinking partner to you. Your quality outcomes are not where you want them to be. And if I have tools that might help you, here are some that are free. Here are some that we can talk about that aren't free. But really, the best growth process for me is about building those relationships and making them valuable to both parties.
Okay, fantastic. And where can people learn more about Radius Leaders and get in touch with your team?
So the easiest way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn, just Greta Rossler. Radius Leaders also has a page on LinkedIn, but you can find me there and I'm active on there. You can look up our website, radiusleaders.com, and you can also email me through our website. My email's on there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Greta, for your time, and very interested learning about Radius Leaders and what you do. And I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you, Hardeep.